Hello viewers. Well, I wasn't planning on doing a video today being the 24th of September 2015. It was going to be a day for catching up on various other things that I'm behind on, making preparations for the new or for the latest JW Broadcasting episode Rebuttal. But there's been some developments over the last 24 hours and I thought the best way to let everyone know about it was to do a video. So basically, to put you in the picture, I started getting messages through yesterday about changes that were happening in the organisation. And apparently there was an announcement at the morning worship yesterday at all branches around the world, letting Bethelites know that there would be reductions in the number of branches and basically layoffs. Watchtower is continuing what it's already doing, which is scaling down. It's worldwide footprint. It's scaling down the number of branch offices it has and the number of people working in those branch offices. And it was even suggested that whereas in some cases, or in the majority of cases, Bethels have laundry rooms and dining halls and that kind of thing, from now on or shortly it will be the case that more Bethelites will be doing their own laundry and will be making their own meals. So there's some big changes going on. Quite what the time scale will be, I don't know. But normally I wouldn't have reported on that, but I had 3 different independent sources who didn't know about each other all approach me about it. So I thought there must be some substance to this. So I put up an article yesterday about the proposed downsizing, and as part of the article I said, listen, if you're a Bethelite and you know more about this, I would really like to hear from you. And sure enough, I had an email. I'm not going to say who it's from because it's very important that this person stays anonymous. But basically this email offered me more information on a different aspect of the downsizing that I've been reporting on, which is the reduction in the amount of printing. So as I've been arguing for some time now, if you're trying to spot signs of weakness or signs of vulnerability or signs of hardship in an organisation that principally does printing, then the place you need to look is not in the membership numbers, but in the amount of printing it's doing. So if an organisation is having problems with printing, what it will do is, if an organisation that does printing is having financial problems, I should say, what it will do is it will scale back its printing, because printing is very expensive. It's basically an obsolete form of conveying information. And nowadays, if people want information, they can get it for free online, and Watchtower knows this, and it's trying to move away from printing and get more into conveying its propaganda online. So I'm starting to babble a bit, but what I'm trying to get to is that this contact of mine, I won't say whether it's a he or a she, where they're from, all I know is that they were able to leak to me a letter that is going to be read out to all congregations following the annual meeting. So we're now on, as I say, the 24th of September. The annual meeting will be on Saturday, October the 3rd, and this letter, dated October 4th, 2015, is supposed to be read out to all congregations to let them know, or make sure they know, about all of the changes that are going to be announced on October 3rd at the Jersey City Assembly Hall, assuming that's where Watchtower is going to have its annual meeting. So the letter is just incredible. It really is changing the organisation. It's already almost unrecognisable from the religion I can remember being a part of. It feels as though a lot of the heart and soul and cultural value that was in Jehovah's Witnesses is slowly eroding away, and this letter marks yet another change in that direction. So I'm not going to read the entire letter word for word for the simple reason I've already had problems with Watchtower by doing that. So I've already had Watchtower come after me and try and claim that reading a letter that's not supposed to be read is a copyright issue, which I would say it's not. I will be reproducing the letter in full on JW Survey, and a link is going to be in the description for you to read the full letter if you want to, and we'll just see what happens with that. But at least with my YouTube channel, I'd like to keep that free as much as possible from Watchtower's lawyers. So I'm going to read selected parts of the letter, and there's one section of the letter in particular that I will be reading more or less all of because it's so intriguing. So the first announcement is, according to the letter, is that they're not releasing a new Bible Teach book. They're basically releasing a second Bible Teach book. So at the moment, the Bible Teach book looks like this. So this is the 2014 edition of the Bible Teach book. You can see there with the jw.org logo on the back. And as far as I can tell, this wasn't released as a new edition for any other reason than because of the 2013 revision to the New World Translation. So because the Bible texts had changed, they needed to release a new Bible Teach book, and this is what it looks like. But the governing body is releasing an additional Bible Teach book, which is basically a simplified or dumbed down version for people who find this too complicated. So if you find this too complicated, good news, there's an even more stupid version on its way. So the new version that will be used hand in hand with this version will be called What Can the Bible Teach Us? So what can the Bible teach us? It will be a 224-page book. And the letter says it does not replace the Bible Teach book, rather it will be useful when studying with individuals who need to have the truth presented in a simpler manner. And it lists a few bullet points here, which I'll read. It says at the end of every chapter is a 2-page summary rather than a review box. These summaries can also be used to conduct Bible studies. At the end of the book, endnotes are provided rather than an appendix. The endnotes correlate closely with the glossary of the Revised New World Translation. The endnotes clarify some expressions that we as Jehovah's Witnesses use in our everyday conversation, but that may not be familiar to the public. Some of the text and illustrations used in the Bible Teach book have been adjusted. So basically a dumbed down version of the Bible Teach book will be available alongside the one that's supposed to be for more compos mentis individuals. And what else? Oh yeah, they're going to give it a very, very similar appearance to the Bible Teach book. It's just going to be a slightly different colour. So it will basically look like this, but it will be a slightly different colour or shade so that you can very quickly distinguish between the two. So that's the first bit of news. Not the most interesting. The second bit of news is about a new organised book. So a revised organised book, which is this. So that's the 2005 edition of Organised to Do Jehovah's Will. I don't know whether you remember, but they had a previous edition to this that was almost identical, but they altered the pages and added a few bits of material and changed the name slightly. It was Organised to Accomplish Our Ministry or something like that, but now it's called Organised to Do Jehovah's Will. They're releasing a new version of that, but I just found the way the news is conveyed very interesting. I'll read it to you. Before you can access the book in JW Library, you must first download. Sorry, I should back up a little bit. By the time this letter is read out, this book will be available on jw.org. But there's a catch. You have to do it via the JW Library app if you want to download a copy of it. And it says, before you can access the book in JW Library, you must first download the latest version of the application. The following disclaimer will appear on the screen. This book is an internal publication provided solely for use by congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses and is not intended for public distribution. So it's not something that Jehovah's Witnesses are terribly proud about everyone seeing. I'm sure that there will nevertheless be PDFs of this book freely available moments after it's made available on JW Library. So look out for that. I obviously don't know what the changes are yet. But the next part of the letter was very interesting. It said, because of the cost involved in producing printed publications, it is preferred that wherever possible, publishers make full use of electronic copies rather than requesting printed copies. However, a printed copy of the organised book will be requested for any publisher who desires to receive one. The group overseers will begin to check with each publisher after the meeting to determine if printed copies are desired. So, I found that fascinating. We are finally getting to the stage where Watchtower is starting to say, you know what, it's expensive to print this stuff that we're sending you. Why don't you just download it? And if you really, really, really want a printed copy, go on, then you can order one. So we're already at that stage where publishers are basically being made to feel a little bit guilty about drawing on Watchtower's resources by ordering a printed version of the book. And by the way, if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this, order printed versions of the book. Don't feel guilty. So it's already getting to that stage where there's a little bit of guilt involved. I strongly feel we're moving in the direction where all of Watchtower materials will be, you'll have to download them for yourselves. And if you're going to the meeting, you'll have to take printouts, or if you're going on the ministry, you'll have to use printouts. I really strongly feel we're moving in that direction because, as I said before, printing is becoming obsolete. It's becoming too expensive, especially for cults with a terrible reputation to contend with. So that's the organised book out of the way. And again, that's not the most interesting announcement on this letter. Right, there's two really interesting announcements, and I'll get to one of them. Oh no, I better cover, sorry, they're going to release a study edition of the New World Translation. So a study edition will be available, but they've actually, for some reason, not included a full paragraph or paragraphs on that. At this point in the letter, when it's being read out at the meetings, the person who's taking the part will have a 5-minute, 30-second video shown, which basically announces the study edition of the New World Translation. So I don't really have a great deal of information on that. All it says is that electronic copies of the study edition of the Book of Matthew are now available in English, or will be available in English on jw.org. In the future they will be available in the JW Library app. So something about the New World Translation there, releasing a study edition of it. Now, the big two announcements. This is a big one because it follows along the lines of something I've been reporting on for some time now. The magazines are shrinking again, basically. They're scaling down on the magazines even further. So I'll read you what it says. Public edition of the Watchtower and Awake. Beginning in January 2016, the magazines for the public will be published bi-monthly. That is, every 2 months. We will offer one magazine to the public each month, alternating between the Watchtower and Awake. So 1 month they're going to offer a Watchtower, and the next month they're going to offer an Awake, because they're going to skip basically a month in between. During January we will offer During January we will offer the Watchtower. During February we will feature subjects in Awake, and so on. This arrangement will allow us to focus on the appealing information in each magazine for the entire month. In addition, an issue date will no longer be printed on the cover. Instead, the magazines will be identified by a number followed by the year. Now that's fairly obviously because they're ashamed about the fact that they're no longer printing monthly issues, but this is the interesting part where there's an interesting part here where it tries to excuse that. It says, why is this helpful? We often would like to offer older magazines because the message is just what the householder needs. However, the date on the cover may give the impression that the information is out of date. That will no longer be an obstacle. We are confident that you will offer the life-giving information in the magazines with renewed enthusiasm. Fantastic. So it's not about the fact that they're ashamed that they're no longer printing monthly editions of the Watchtower for the public. It's because they just want to streamline things and make things less of an obstacle. So there you go. Now, I want to just labour on this because some of you who follow my website, JW Survey, will remember that I released an article about the fact that when you add up all the figures, as of 2013, when I published my article, as of 2013, Watchtower was printing on a monthly basis 39% less material, less magazine-related material than it had been in 2005. And I derived that figure from some calculations which I published on JW Survey. And those calculations are based on a number of variables. Firstly, how many pages per magazine are they printing each month? And you also need information on what the circulation is for each magazine. And based on all of those figures, I was able to figure out that whereas monthly printed pages per magazine, per the number of circulated issues, that used to be just over 3 billion in 2005 when they were printing two 32-page magazines of both the Watchtower and Awake every month. 3 billion printed magazine pages. By 2013, that number was down to 1.87 billion printed pages per month by 2013. Now we've had a further drop. So we're now looking at 2016. And when you compare the number of printed pages per month for magazines, when you compare those figures for between those suggested for 2016 and those that were being printed in 2005, it's no longer 39%, it will be a 57% reduction in monthly magazine printing for Watchtower between 2005 and 2016. So Watchtower will only be printing 43% of the magazine pages that it was printing in 2005. That's not an insignificant climb down in printing. And just to kind of show you, because that, as I say, factors in things like the circulation figures. For example, circulation is actually going up. So in 2005, the Watchtower had a circulation of 26 million. By 2013, it had a circulation for the public Watchtower of 45 million. And as of 2016, as of the current public Watchtower, the circulation is 53 million, let's say, circulation. So circulation is going up. But even when you factor in the increase in circulation, they're still doing much, much less printing than they were doing in 2005. They're only now, as I say, doing 43% of the printing that they were doing in 2005 when it comes to magazines. And to show you what that looks like, because as I say, it kind of gets a bit blurred when you start talking about circulation, but let's just talk about pages, about the pages that you and I receive. So in 2005, here's a Watchtower and Awake bound volume from 1999, and this is basically how big the magazines were, or how big the volumes were in 2005, and that's how much printed material would, an ordinary witness would receive on an annual basis. Okay, and this represents 1,536 pages, printed pages of magazine material that publishers were getting up until 2005. Now, by 2013, we were down to this many pages. So by 2013, the number of pages that reached a Jehovah's Witness, either for their own study or for distributing in the ministry, had halved. So that's not an insignificant climb down. Now for 2016, let me show you what's happened. We're now left with this many pages for 2016. So these are all gone. And we're now left with, for the entire year, bear in mind what I showed you before, for the entire year, this is how many pages of study edition combined with public magazines a Jehovah's Witness is going to receive as of 2016. Now, you could try arguing, if you like, that is the sign of a prospering printing organisation, an organisation that is distributing spiritual food on an unprecedented level. If you like, you can say that, but I would suggest that it's an organisation in crisis, because they are drastically scaling down on their printing operations. So that's all I wanted to say on that. There's another huge piece of news, and it relates to the midweek meetings. And to boil all this down into one sentence, the Theocratic Ministry School is no more. Okay, so that's the headline. Let me read to you the letter, and there's quite a few paragraphs here, and I'll try and break things up for you as best I can, but the best way really is to read the letter to you. The heading is Our Christian Life and Ministry Meeting. So it's no longer going to be called whatever it was called. I don't know, was it called the service meeting, the Theocratic meeting? It's now the whole thing is called Our Christian Life and Ministry Meeting. Beginning the week of January 4, 2016, congregations will have a new midweek meeting called Our Christian Life and Ministry. One meeting will replace the 3 separate meetings currently being held, namely the Congregation Bible Study, the Theocratic Ministry School, and the service meeting. In connection with this change, Our Kingdom Ministry is being replaced by a new 4-colour, 8-page monthly publication entitled Our Christian Life and Ministry Meeting Workbook. This publication is intended for Jehovah's Witnesses and for those who regularly attend our meetings. It outlines the weekly meeting schedule and features artwork designed to make your personal reading of the Bible more meaningful. It is a workbook that prompts you to make personal notes. No doubt you will enjoy reviewing the January 2016 issue of the Life and Ministry Meeting Workbook when you download an electronic copy from jw.org or the JW Library app, or receive a printed copy through the congregation. Since the workbook will not include a section for announcements, congregations will be informed of monthly literature offers by means of letters from the branch office. So the Theocratic Ministry School is no more, and they've changed the Our Kingdom Ministry, which was like a newsletter that witnesses would use to take part in the midweek meetings. That's now being rebranded, and it's being turned into a workbook for people to follow along with the meetings. So I'll move on with the letter. Each life and ministry meeting will begin with an opening song and prayer, followed by comments from the life and ministry meeting chairman. What a wordy title. Hello, I'm the life and ministry meeting chairman. How can I help you? His opening comments of no more than 3 minutes will generate anticipation for the programme to follow. Thereafter, the chairman will introduce the first section of the meeting, called Treasures from God's Word. The first part in this section will be a 10-minute talk based on the weekly Bible reading and artwork from the workbook. When the scheduled weekly Bible reading begins a new Bible book, a brief video introducing the book will be shown at the start of this part. So I get the impression that videos are now going to be integrated more into ordinary meetings. So what that means in practical terms, in terms of congregations investing in screens and projectors and what have you, you would have to ask your local elders. But I get the impression that Watchtower is extremely proud of itself for its new video initiatives, and it wants to roll those out more at a congregation meeting level. So videos will play more of a part in ordinary congregation meetings. The second part in this section, entitled Digging for Spiritual Gems. Who thinks of these titles? Digging for Spiritual Gems will be an 8-minute question and answer consideration based on the weekly Bible reading. Questions for consideration during this part are found in the workbook, and the audience will answer these based on their research. The Treasures from God's Word section will conclude with a brother reading an assigned portion of the weekly Bible reading. Next paragraph. The next section of the Life and Ministry meeting is entitled Apply Yourself to the Field Ministry and is 15 minutes in length. This is the replacement to the Theocratic Ministry School. So it's no longer, as I'm going to be telling you, it's no longer about honing people's public speaking skills. It's about teaching them to be evangelizers and push Watchtower's message. 3 student presentations assigned to brothers or sisters will help us develop our ability to teach on an initial call, on a return visit, and on a Bible study. During the first week of every month, in place of the 3 student presentations, videos of model presentations will be shown and discussed to help us prepare for the ministry that month. The printed edition of the workbook is designed so that you may write your own presentation on the front page. We encourage each of you to take full advantage of the Apply Yourself to the Field Ministry section of the meeting. Doing so will help you to become a more effective preacher and teacher of the good news. Now, I was actually quite sad when I read about this, because I had similar feelings to when they announced that they were getting rid of MTS. First, they changed the name of MTS to Bible School for Single Brothers, and then they got rid of it entirely and renamed it the School for Christian Evangelizers. And it basically, from what I can tell, is basically now a pioneer school, an advanced pioneer school. And I was rather sad about that. Obviously, I'm delighted that women are involved in the new version of MTS, but it doesn't seem to be in any way giving a huge insight into the organisation, or really equipping people to play a role in the organisation anymore, other than to evangelise. And this latest news about the Theocratic Ministry School basically being scrapped, I don't know, I just feel sad about it in a way, because if you were to really push me on, surely there's something good about Jehovah's Witnesses, surely there is some kind of benefit to being a Jehovah's Witness. And if you really pushed me on that, I would say, well, I suppose I've personally benefited from the Theocratic Ministry School, because at least it helped me with my public speaking ability. That's the one benefit I can think of. If you really pushed me, it doesn't excuse all of the really bad stuff and the fact that it's all based on lies, but at least it's a nugget of goodness in a heap of... Anyway, so now they're just getting rid of that altogether. They're not interested in equipping people with public speaking skills or skills that are transferable into a secular job. All they want are people who can push their propaganda on the ministry. So now, instead of the Theocratic Ministry School, all you have is a 15-minute section of the meeting where people practice their presentations. or give you presentations and suggested presentations. That's all that's left now that the Theocratic Ministry School has been finally decimated. So I can't, as I say, I know it's all nonsense and I know it's all a cult, but it just feels as though they're tearing out all of the even remotely good bits that I can remember from the religion that I grew up in. The final section of the Life and Ministry meeting is entitled Living as Christians. This section begins with a song. The next 15 minutes of this section will consist of 1 or 2 parts designed to help us apply God's Word. Then there will be a 30-minute congregation Bible study. Thereafter, up to 3 minutes may be used by the chairman to review the meeting and preview material to be considered the following week. I wouldn't like that job, giving the 3-minute summary of the meeting at the end of the meeting, by which point everyone's exhausted and they're thinking, come on, just let us go home. I wouldn't envy that job. Any necessary announcements may also be made at this point. Expressions of praise to Jehovah in song and prayer will conclude the meeting. The entire meeting will be 1 hour and 45 minutes in length. A video has been prepared to help you to become familiar with the format of the Life and Ministry meeting. It is now available, or will be available, on JW Broadcasting in English. Please watch it if you are able to do so. And the letter concludes, we are confident that you will be eager to prepare for and participate in this new meeting. It is our prayer that the variety of teaching methods used will enable all to benefit from the ongoing education that comes from our grand instructor, Jehovah. We send our warm Christian love. So those are the announcements that will be made at the annual meeting on October 3rd. You've had advance notice of them thanks to my contact, who will remain nameless, because it's such an organisation where there is so much fear, and I completely understand those who are inside the organisation who want to share information with me, doing so anonymously. If you are watching this and you're a Bethelite and you're thinking, I've got some really interesting information, should I send it? Please do, and know that you're not going to be judged, and know that you're not going to have any private information divulged publicly or in any way, shape or form. I know exactly how it feels to be terrified of repercussions for doing anything that might be labelled apostate. So I remember the burning fear that comes with doing anything that might be discovered. So don't worry about sharing information. If you're a Bethelite watching this and you feel like approaching me about anything else that may come up. Now, those are the announcements, but I just wanted to conclude with a message to the governing body, because this is kind of quite a big video in terms of leaking information, and that means that just possibly, a governing body member or two might feel tempted to watch the video in its entirety and try to get to the bottom of how this information has been obtained. Well, I have a message for you guys. Things are changing. You think that you can control more than 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses around the world. I've got news for you. You can't even control your own Bethelites. Your own Bethelites who you share morning worship with in the morning. You can't control them because they're sending people like me information. So what makes you think you can control 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses who are only Jehovah's Witnesses because you threaten them and say that they must be Jehovah's Witnesses, and if they try to leave you will punish them through their family? I've got news for you, you're not controlling them. There are people who are awake among that figure that you tout as being proof that Jehovah is backing the organisation. There are a substantial number of people in that 8 million who don't believe that you are spokespersons for God, who don't believe that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is God's one and only organisation. The only reason they're putting time in every month and pretending to be Jehovah's Witnesses is because you are threatening them with estrangement from their family if they don't toe the line. That is no kind of power for you to be proud of. And it's about time you wake up to the fact that things aren't going to get any better. You're reducing the magazines. You've reduced them by what? 57% since 2005. Do you honestly think that statistic's going to get any better over the next 10 years? It's only going in one direction, and you know that. So the time for you to introduce reforms is already going. It's maybe even too late for you to introduce reforms. But if you're really, really serious about salvaging something from Watchtower and continuing the organisation and giving it some kind of viability going on into the 21st century, you desperately, desperately need to introduce reforms and make the organisation less cult-like, not more cult-like. Because we're now in the information age. It's difficult to lie to people, almost impossible to lie to people. This is not a time for you to be able to flourish and grow the organisation. It's only going to go in one direction, and I've got news for you: Jehovah isn't going to swoop to the rescue. So if you want to contact me and discuss ways of reforming the organisation to make it less of a cult and therefore more attractive, getting rid of shunning, yes, you'll lose members, but at least you won't be a cult. At least you'll be able to hold your heads high when you're preaching to people in public, and you won't have this huge thing hanging over your heads where people think, well, really, they're a cult. Imagine getting rid of that stigma. Imagine getting rid of this atrocious reputation that you've got. Imagine just being a normal organisation that people can join on a take it or leave it basis and walk away from if they so choose. Imagine how much prestige you would have if you were that kind of organisation, but you're not. And the only way to get to that stage is by introducing reforms. I don't think you ever will introduce reforms, but if ever you want to speak to me or any other activist, we're here to talk these things through with you and try to help you get to a stage where you can be respectable people who have apologised for the mistakes of the past, for the mistakes of your predecessors, and are taking your organisation forward, even though it's not true. It's based on lies, but at least you're not keeping people captive. That was all I wanted to say to you, chaps. And I hope everyone else has found something interesting in the news I've released. I'm sure this won't be the last time that I have news like this to release, because as I've just said, more and more people are waking up, even inside Bethel. And I'm sure that there will be more leaks like this in the future. But I wanted to make sure I got this information out as quickly as possible, and thank you for watching.